To be loved, we need to be known.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to We Can Do Hard Things. Today, we are having an absolutely beautiful conversation with the incomparable, brilliant, honest, just funny and absolutely wonderful Hannah Gadsby. I have been wanting to speak to Hannah Gadsby for so long, ever since I laughed and cried and raged my way through Nanette. And then after that with Douglas.
Which are her stand-up specials.
Right, her stand-up Netflix specials. And we talk about all kinds of beautiful things today, telling stories and parenting and especially neurodiversity, which I know, sister, you've been wanting to talk about on the pod for so long.
I'm so thankful that she came on and shared so honestly and quite a lot about she has a diagnosis of Autism Spectrum Disorder. And I think it's so important to hear from women about that. Her story is fascinating. She went through really hard times. She was unhoused. She was in terrible situations a lot of her life and was only diagnosed when she was 30, basically. I think it was a year before Nanette came out. And a lot about her story has to do with living without this knowledge of herself, but just living in kind of an ill-fitting world. And it is a place where a lot of girls are. And it's just so important that people learn about this and the way that girls do not exhibit the same signs of autism that boys do. We live by a male model of autism. So that means they're looking for the same markers. That means, and boys are diagnosed 2 years earlier. So there's a lot of girls struggling out there with depression and anxiety. And like Hannah, not being diagnosed until they're 30, and in her words, haven't participated in life up to that point because they've been so sidelined by it. This conversation can help a lot of us.
After you got your autism diagnosis, I think you were 30.
Spoiler alert.
Right?
Spoiler alert. Funny lady, very funny lady. But yeah, I was a bit locked up as a kid. I didn't have great language access. So neurodivergent children. But you get there.
So what was that like as a kid growing up as you without a diagnosis?
Well, it's difficult. I think it might be worth like just clearing up what autism is. And I think so what it basically is, like if you want to boil it down to its bare bones minimum, is it's what animates you, what drives your central nervous system. Smell are kind of sometimes indistinct. And then there are two others, and vestibular and proprioception. So I'm hyper aware of my space. Clutter distresses me. And I have the vestibular is a balance issue. So I don't know where my head is in space. So until it's too late. And so I broke my leg. It's fun times, good times. Last year I had a total knee reconstruction. Same thing, was falling before, and it was too late. Gravity was already my bitch. And so I had my knee busted. And the year before that, I busted my nose open. And then it was a broken toe. Like I have, if someone were to dig me up and, after I was dead, like hundreds of years at time, they would dig me up and go, wow, I think we found a warrior princess. Because my skeletal system is, it's like got the marks of war, but really I fell over walking. Yeah. So I'm playing the long game, really. So these are sort of, not knowing these things that, I have sensitivities was kind of a lot as a kid, because you see people behave in a way and interact and socialize in a way, and you try and do that. And I would get completely overwhelmed or disassociate because I have an oral processing disorder, so I can't tune into noise very well and sort it out in my head. So it's very easy for me to just tune out and listen to people who are speaking English and go, wow, that's a foreign language. So I have to focus really hard, which made learning very difficult. I was very lucky my mum made all my clothes, though there is a dark side to that. Haberdashery abuse is real. But so I never had like the tag issues because there was no tags on my clothes. And she always used nice fabric in the texture quality, not necessarily the patterns. No child needs to wear harlequin sweaters. And then so there was a lot about my childhood that protected me from the worst of my ASD. I grew up in a really small town, and I was a part of a large family, so I had a ready-made social network. I just fit in. But it was windy there. Like, I grew up on a really small island and on the northwest coast, and it's famous for its fresh air. Who knew? I did. I just told you. And so it's really windy, and so I was always confused because wind throws sound around. And so I was perpetually confused as a child. Like, I was always given names like, dithery or vague or dopey and, these sorts of things. And I used to confuse people because on one hand I could be incredibly intelligent and then as dumb as bricks. And the older I got, the more people would read into that, the less adorable I became, and people would see it as willful or manipulative because I could misunderstand what's going on and accidentally hurt people's feelings. But it would be an honest mistake on my behalf, but it would be difficult for people to believe that because, in the next breath, I could be incredibly intelligent. And not knowing and not being able to sort of contextualize all that confusion for me was difficult.
You talk about social situations, and you describe it as thinking that everyone's just saying what they mean. Fix this for me. You think everyone's just saying what they mean, and that's how you're operating, but you realize there's an undercurrent of things that people are communicating in ways that you're not picking up. Is that?
Yeah. There's no subtext for me. Like, it blows my mind when, people are saying, I was just being polite, but really, the person they were being polite to leaves and they're like, hate them. I'm like, you were so nice to them. How are they supposed to know? I didn't know. And I was nice to the person I'm supposed to not like. And then, you'd hear people deconstruct conversations and then they said this thing and that meant this. And I'm like, did it? I've learned so much. These things. And then, once I was diagnosed, I was like, you know what? I don't actually care. You go talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to rearrange my furniture.
So was it freeing? Was it freeing? Tell me about getting diagnosed. Did it feel like something had been wrong with you that you didn't understand and now it didn't feel wrong anymore? It felt like its own thing?
It felt like an exfoliation of shame.
Wow.
Because once you understand that you have ASD, you understand that there's not a lot in your control. Like, then it's less about being you're a bad person for not caring about small talk. And then you understand that it's not how you connect to other people. It's not how you connect to the world. I connect through my passions and my interests. And when someone who's neurodivergent wants to connect to the world and to people, it's through those things. It's like, what is interesting? And neurotypical people, it's like, what is important? And it's, neurotypical people interact, and connect face to face. It's like direct. Whereas I'm into parallel play. You want to get to know me, you go over there and do what you're doing. I'll be in the same room doing my thing, and haven't we had a great time?
Mm-hmm.
Not if they want to talk about their feelings.
Well, you said when people come up to you individually to talk about your life or your feelings, you say, no, I do that in bulk on stage.
Yeah, I'm like the Costco of
Yes.
human interaction. It's just like, we're just buying bulk and just a certain line of products, just one of each. And I've never actually been to Costco. That sounds like a nightmare to me.
It is.
Is Costco even a thing here?
is.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah. So it's a really bad metaphor for me because I hate big shopping places. Especially, yeah. Anyway, so, but we'll keep going with it. So it's sort of, I've lost myself.
Hannah, my ex-husband, when I was married, used to sit down and say,
No, sorry, I
know.
do know.
It's a whole thing.
I'm joking.
Used to sit down and say, so I read that your depression is back. I read it in a magazine. And he would try to talk to me about it. And I would say, but just read the article again. Like I wrote about it. I did it in bulk. Right?
Yeah, I
get that.
feel like I kind of get where he's coming from there. It's sort of like maybe he could have seen an advanced copy
Fair.
going on. This is like, maybe a heads up.
Yeah,
That's
we've
fair.
altered that in our marriage, right? Like before things go to press, we
Yeah,
have the
can I help
conversation.
you edit your bulk
Right.
declaration of situation? It is a tricky thing. Like, I think you just have to work out, like with any relationship, I guess, you have to just meet people where they're at. When two neurodivergent people communicate, it's fluid. When two neurotypical people talk to each other, it's fluid. It's just when the two meet, it can be really, really awkward. And I've experienced that often. But the thing is, I have learnt the ways of the neurotypicals. I have studied these people. Like I prepare for neurotypical engagement. I know I'm trained in the art of small talk because I know it's important. The problem is the privilege of neurotypical people is they don't have to learn how to parallel play with what had happened is you pathologize. It's like you're not communicating correctly, therefore you are less than, you are not doing this right, you are weird. Back in the day, they'd burn you at the stake, like totally think I'm a witch. Like I think that's what witches were, just neurodivergent women. I'd totally float if you threw me in the river.
That blew my mind because I heard you say, ultimately, what I'm in the business of is to demand people be more aware of how and why they think, not what they think, because that's the reality of autism. You have autism, you have to think about how you think. That's what you do. And neurotypicals don't do that. They just assume the way they think is right. I live with people who have some
Sprinkling?
sprinkling. It's a veritable cornucopia over here.
Yeah.
And
carnival.
yes, and that thinking, turning that lens on myself and thinking, no, this is how you're thinking about it, and that is why you're out of sync. Not necessarily there's something wrong or broken about the way they're thinking. And how do you think that people who want to balance that hierarchy as it's set up right now, who want to connect with people who they love, who are neurodivergent, how do we begin to understand about how we think that is building those barriers?
I think a really great place to start is not to take things personally. And just move past it to the next thing. It's really difficult, I think, with the parent-child relationship, because it's, children don't have the language yet. They're learning the language in order to, then communicate what issues are, what the problem are. What might look like as, a tantrum is probably a sensory overload, and it looks like a small problem. So, a parent might go, well, I'm taking you seriously, but really that, come on, this is like you don't like that cup, come on, clam down. But what's happening is perhaps there's something about the sensory part of this process that seems insignificant to a neurotypical, but is, a war zone for someone on the spectrum. There's an expected, bond that's supposed to happen with parents and children that neurodivergent children are always going to disappoint. And I think one of the first things is like, yeah, you got to stop taking that seriously. And that's you got to take it seriously. Sorry, words are my gift. Personally, like try and sort of meet people where they're at. And there's always going to be a lag with children because, especially if you have difficulty with language, it's going to take a while to sort of get to that place. But in the adult world, it is difficult for women on the spectrum. Men get, there is a certain place on the spectrum that is reserved for the great white geniuses, and they're allowed to hyper focus on their special interest and be terrible at interpersonal communications, and they're held up as the best of men. But it's much more difficult for women because of the expectations in the social network that we're supposed to uphold, and when we fail, that is a failure of character. And it's really difficult to sort of convince people that it's just like, I can't do it any differently. My brain is not wired to do what you want it to do. Now what? Mm-hmm. But we sort of get stuck on this, like, you're weird, you're doing this wrong, and I camouflage and mask a lot. And that's an incredibly exhausting process. So for this podcast, I had to prepare a lot. Like I had to listen to your, it wasn't a chore. Love your podcast. Well done. Keep up the good work. But it wasn't, it was really active engagement with it, because in order to talk to 3 people at the same time, I felt, like I had to make sure I understood the way that you speak, the cadence, your pitch, not as a way of familiarizing myself. So when in the moment, hoping that I could hear what you're saying, process it, and then turn it around with reciprocal speech takes a huge amount of effort for me. Mm-hmm. So what might look like, it's just a casual chat is a marathon for me. And so then that depletes your energy levels. And then once I have meltdowns, I shut down mostly. I just stop communicating, and that's hard for people if they don't want to believe that it's not personal. Mm-hmm. It's great. It's a good life. Love it.
What you just shared is such a gift. I mean, that's so important to understand, that the work that you put in to showing up in a space, I just feel like that's a gift for people to understand that. Mm-hmm. And thank you for doing that for this.
No problems.
Hannah, can you talk to us?
Problems I outlined them, didn't I? But
no problem.
No worries. There's a lot of worry, but no, we're cool. Thanks.
How does ASD affect relationships? Like, what challenges, and if there are gifts, what are those? Because you're in a relationship now.
Nailing it.
Yeah.
The before there's a disconnect of what, when I mask, I'm fine. Like people are like, you're normal. You're a little bit quirky, but you're normal. But you can't maintain that. That's exhausting. And so once you're spending your private time with someone, I begin to melt down. So I will be reactive. I struggle to regulate my emotions when I'm under stress, and I have a lot of trauma, big T's and little T's. So, that also affects your ability to regulate. So, I have been, I can frighten people, when I'm just trying to I have devastatingly simple needs, but if those needs aren't met, then I can be snappy in a way that is not pleasant for other people. And so I was laboring under the false idea that, that perhaps I was borderline abusive. But what was happening was my boundaries were not being respected. And so I'd be a snappy Tom, and they're like, when I'm fine, I'm very easygoing and like, okay. So it just seemed like I was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And one of the really interesting ones for me is touch, because it's overwhelming for me. And in a lesbian relationship, what? How are you supposed to do that? It's all about the touch, isn't it? Touchy feely. And I'm like, do we have to talk about our feelings again? And so,
Yes.
like, just a light touch, like that's a universal standard, isn't it? For like, intimacy. It's like just a nice soft touch. And I flinch, like, because that is a really horrible sensation for me. So, but not knowing that, people take that as rejection. Like, it's like, oh, you find me repulsive. Like, no, just that touch. Generally, lovely. But it's really hard to communicate that when you don't know. Even when I did know, I struggled for a while because it seems simple. It doesn't seem like much. It's like, if people kept not touching me with a firm touch and just a light touch, I kept flinching, it builds up, and it just doesn't. It's a really easy fix, but the other person has to want to believe that I don't like a light touch. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You
I'm
are.
trying,
I have,
I'm
I have
real
kind
hard.
of a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
I love follow-up questions, Abby, so thank you.
So in terms of like neurotypical and neurodivergent, it would be, because I actually, since we had our pre-call, I'm like, I think I want to get tested, because I just feel like we all are somewhere on the spectrum, right? And I think I've had learning stuff throughout my life that I want to just understand more. But I think it's the role, like what happens is neurotypical people want to like fix this part maybe in you. So like, let's go through a process, Hannah. Is this like common? Like, let's go through a process and work on this touch. Like
Exposure therapy?
Yeah, like let's beat this out of you or pray it away. Like what has that ever happened in your life? And like,
all the time. And I do it to myself before I was diagnosed too. So like, because I'm a problem solver, I have a problem solver's brain. So like, this is a problem, I want to fix it. And then so like I experiment with fixing it. And it's just like this, ends up, I've had so many major depressive episodes. It's almost funny again. Because it's that overwhelm of putting yourself into these sort of situations that are overwhelming and detrimental to your central nervous system, and then you just can't cope, and then it's like broadcast out. And I will say this, Abby, like, if you feel like there's something that I'm saying that is connecting to you, and I'm been speaking in very vague and specific terms here, and it is a very complicated thing. But do get yourself checked out, because if you are, it'll be a game changer. And I will also say this: there is a very large crossover between autism and gender ambivalence. We'll call it ambivalent. I'm going to call it gender ambivalence.
I love it.
Because left to my own devices, like whatever. But people, neurotypicals, demand that, like, front on, like, what are you? But inside of me, it's just like, well, it's just coming out how it's coming out, isn't it? Like, you need to deal with your feelings on this. But there are a lot of non-binary folk, trans folk, genderqueer folk on the spectrum, because I think there's something about the gender binary that does not make sense.
Yes.
It is illogical. It is what is important, not what is interesting.
Interesting. Cool.
Why is it so hard for girls to get diagnosed? What is that about?
We present differently. So the idea of what autism is being based and studied on, young men. white men, if we want to get specific, like the biases that exist in science everywhere, in all parts of science, medicine, research, you know, exist in this. So, there are women of color on the spectrum, and a lot of them are running around not knowing it, because it will be different again, because women are expected to behave in a certain way, and as a culture we've been trained to pathologize women who don't um, uh, behave in the correct way, in the way that it is a character flaw. It is, you're going to hell, you're not doing it right. It is that shaming. And so if a young boy doesn't interact with his peers and he wants to identify every single dinosaur there is, fine. That seems normal in a way. But if a girl was to do that, often their peers will identify it as wrong before parents will observe it, and they begin masking. So the masking thing in girls, because you're watching your peers and you're like, they're doing these things, I should do these things. And so I think a lot of the time, not so much now, like it's opening up now, but I think women of my generation, that's what it's happening. Like you're masking, and you find people in their 40s having breakdowns all the time, women on the spectrum, undiagnosed women.
And it's similar to even our model of heart attacks, how women present very differently than men. And so women are dying of heart attacks because their symptoms don't match. Girls typically have often a different presentation than boys. It made sense when you said the exfoliation of shame, because girls are kind of in this lost period of masking and not being identified. Then they're going through adolescence. Then they're being diagnosed with depression and anxiety as the primary reason for their struggles. And oh, that's so hormonal. And then they spend their whole lives thinking their lives aren't working out because of their depression and anxiety, and not they're depressed and anxious because they've never been identified and understood for who they are.
Yeah, I always was sort of like to frame it as like, I always thought that I was struggling because I was depressed and anxious. But then I realized I'm depressed and anxious because I am struggling. And so I never identified that I was struggling. That like, I didn't understand that I wasn't looking people in the eye, and because I would just watch their mouths move. I didn't understand that I couldn't hear properly. I can hear properly. My hearing's, as my mum would call it, 20/20. That's sight, mum. But I watch people's mouths, and that helps me put together what they're saying. And so it's a lot of compensatory techniques that I use to get through that. But also it's about how trauma presents in neurodivergent people is not the same. So getting therapy is fraught, particularly if the therapist doesn't know or you don't know, so there's like, let's talk about this thing again. Let's talk about this thing again. And that is so stressful. Like, it is so stressful to be front facing to these things, because the central nervous system is not cut out for that sort of onslaught. So things compound, and a lot of women on the spectrum have complex PTSD, because these small traumas are just daily.
Wow. Can you talk to us about your decision to stop using self-deprecating humor about your body or about your sexuality or about your gender, or any of it, in comedy? Like, how did that come to you, and what does it mean to you?
That's a long process. When I first started doing comedy, I was quite monosyllabic, and I had to learn train very hard to modulate my voice and things like that. But I was very deadpan and just worked with people's assumption on who I was, and then subverted it. But that in order to subvert people's assumption, you have to play on that field. You have to play that game. And even if you're trying to subvert it, you're still kicking that ball around. You're still kicking the stereotypes around. You're still engaging with stereotypes. And as I matured as a performer, I got bored with that. That was no longer interesting, even though it was important to an audience. And I began to feel very disconnected. So about 8 years into my career, I started going, I don't make sense on stage anymore. And part of that was early on, I do stand up, and then during festivals, I'd work with like a gallery and do comedy art lectures. Now, we worked out I wanted to do comedy art tours, but turns out I'm not a natural leader. So I'd be going, right, we'll go and look at this painting now. And I'd go over there and I'd stand, and everyone's like, oh, we'll go over here. And I'm like, no one's following me. So we worked out quite quickly that people have to be seated, facing me, stuck. And then they'll, oh, you're actually quite interesting. All right. But so I do comedy art lectures. And what I discovered there is I became what's known as a high status comic when I'm talking about my special interests. Because I'm passionate. I'm talking as with my autism first. It's like, this is what I'm interested in. And, people love these. They're really popular. And I love doing them. And I felt good on stage. And I'm like, this is me being autistic. It's me, like, being funny as without masking. And in my comedy, though, when I'm trying to explain myself and go, it's very hard for me to do observational humor. Because, I'm not looking at the same things everyone says, like, you know what it's like. And people are like, no, what you're speaking of is not familiar. So you have to do a lot of explaining. And then, so in that, I folded in a lot of masking. And then that becomes confusing as you get older and more mature and you like who you are. You're just like, this is not a true representation of how I see the world or how I think people, I'm softening myself. I'm apologizing. I'm like, hey, it's weird that I'm like this, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, it is. And then eventually I just broke. I said, you know what? It's not. It's weird that you don't notice that people are different. And that very much informed my desire to stop being self-deprecating, because I just wanted to be autistic. I just want to go, hey, I've got some stuff to talk about, and whatever feelings you have about what this is, you need to get over it because I've got things to say. Mm-hmm. And that is part of the reason. The other part of the reason is, come on. Why, particularly women, why do we have to put ourselves down in order to speak in public? It hasn't changed. I still get all the hate mail that you want, take your pick. Men have been trained not to like women who speak their mind in public. It's a thing. We're not going to change it soon. We're going to have to grin and bear it, but I may as well grin and bear it being confident.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about.
Bet you do.
You do. I just want to talk forever, but we only have 15 minutes. So here's what I want to talk about now.
Fast money round.
This is what's interesting to me. Is the journey that you and your mom have taken, but that in terms of the journey you've taken to figure out what comedy is to you. You had a moment with your mom where she was talking about not having regretted anything. And you said, is there anything? Maybe.
Yeah, well, she said this thing. She's like, I'm really proud. I like impersonating my mom. I'm really proud that I brought my kids up without religion. I really am, because I've raised 5 children with minds of their own. I'm really proud of that. And I'm like, well done you, Mum. You pat yourself on the back. Good on you. And I was just sort of she's having a moment, and I missed it because I think we know why. And so I said, oh yeah, well, what parenting decisions do you regret, Mum? And there's a laundry list. I thought she'd go. And we talk like that a little bit. I'll say to Mum, Mum used to scare the bejesus out of me when I was growing up. She said, good, I didn't like you that much. And it's funny. We're being funny. It's quite Australian. I think this horrifies some American audiences when I say that. It's like, it's fine. But she wasn't going there. So she was being thoughtful. And then she just said a thing that blew my mind. And it was the seed that became my show, Nanette, where she's like, "Ooh, the thing I regret is that I raised you as if you were straight." And because when you the coming out story is all about, will people accept you? And Mum just did all this work, and I didn't know. She went way back, and she went to a place that not many people are at now. She's like pushing 80. And she's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have assumed you were straight. And I wasn't your friend. And I should have been." She said, "I knew." I'm just committing to Mum's voice here. She's like, "I wanted you to change because I knew the world wouldn't." And she's right. The world didn't change, but she's like, and I was just sort of like, because when you're coming out, it's overwhelming. Like, you're just ready for the rejection. And it is all about you. It has to be all about you. But the telling of our coming out stories, telling of a lot of trauma stories, we are freeze framing on that moment of trauma, and we don't then have a lot of public discussions about these moments, because we live in a punishment society. Like, we don't give room for restorative justice, let's call it. And the art history informed that part of it for me. So Mum said this to me, but also because I was thinking a lot about proto-Renaissance, I made these connections. And this is the gift of autism. Like, you make connections. Your brain has more connections going on. And so in art history, I don't know if you know this, but it's a myth where people sort of like, oh, back in the day, not everyone could read, so they learned from paintings and pictures. And that is not correct. They learned through oral storytelling. Like, stories would be told. Stories are familiar. And the art played a purpose of freeze framing the stories into familiar parts of the stories, points of the stories. So, the most famous one, I guess, is Christianity has been frozen to the crucifixion. Now, there is a big story, but that is the freeze frame is on that moment. And that is a big decision. Like, because from that freeze frame, you can leverage a lot of shame and guilt, because that's your fault. But there are some great stories in that whole narrative, but that freeze frame. And that, in mythology, it's the same thing. It's like a lot of stories are freeze framed at the moment a woman happens to be nude. That is a strong freeze frame there. So art history has this tendency to freeze frame. And I think generally our storytelling sort of circles trauma, and then solves it in a whodunit kind of way. And then we don't have stories that then talk about, hey, I went through trauma, but I'm all right. Like, this doesn't define me. Fuck me up for a bit. Sorry, language. But, like, older women have these stories where they can put into context in their entire life. Like, they're not, and I was just missing those stories in the public sphere. I know so many old ladies, and they're just like, yeah, he's an idiot. They're all idiots, but they're fine. And, I just wanted to put that breath into my own story. It's like, in my comedy, I made a lot of comedy out of the way my mum reacted. And it was a way of, like, paved the way for my own healing, to be able to make fun of it. You need the jokes. But it then, it stops our ability to talk about the evolution on both sides. And we're obsessed with trauma points. Like, as in our storytelling culture, like, news is nothing but scattergun trauma porn. Like, we always know what's going wrong, but we never know how stuff resolves. And I think public, displays of resolution are important and missing.
Can I read you one quote from your book that you said about your family
Sure.
that I think is so important?
Be weird if I said no.
Yeah, it would be weird, but I would honor you.
We would respect it.
Yeah, you're very kind.
Pass.
This was about your mom having a very hard time with you coming out at first. But you said our family unit had been collateral damage, nothing more than pawn porn for the juvenile and toxic political games being played out well above our heads. That is the shit that ruined my life.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's happening now.
Right.
Right now, to particularly trans kids now, because we're not talking about their humanity. We're talking about whether or not their gender is right. And we're talking about whether we can solve gender right now. And it's a political point. I see it, it's doing my head in. It's breaking my heart. It is excruciating to watch. We as adults are making the same mistakes. The way we speak about these subjects are in terms of I am right, you're wrong. It's just can we just agree that we don't know what the hell we are, and just give people what they need, and not pathologize. But this is it is happening now as we speak. The trans kids are being politicized. That is exactly what happened to me.
Some families are reacting badly to their humanity. And I think your point is so important that those families, those parents are pawns.
Yeah.
They have been duped. They have been tricked. They have been preached to by higher powers that have taught them to fear their children.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is it going with your mom now? How does she feel about your new book? Did she read it?
So it's all lies. I'm not going to read it. She's a bit scared, and fair enough. Fair enough. It's her story too, and I've got complete control over it. So she's good. She's great. Both my parents are good. I don't know. Dad was really sick when I was going through the net of it all. And one of my last edits of the book, I think I forgot to tell people that he's fine, because it's he's dying of melanoma and he got some experimental treatment, and it turns out it was a good experiment. I mean, who knows? I don't even know what it was. Could be wombat blood. We don't know, but he's fine now. But it was my mum and my dad are chalk and cheese, and the thing to say that explicitly in the book, and he's just so accepting. He's like, oh yeah, go on. But mum has a reaction. Then she goes away, and then she has to think about it. And then she has another reaction, and then she has to think about it. So that's what's happening now. She's having to think about it, having reactions, having thoughts. That's why we love her.
Do you feel she called it? Well, you called it in the book. And by the way, you did say your dad was okay. There was one little part.
Yeah,
I
had to add
searched
that
for
in.
it.
They're like, we need to know, because there is no resolution there. I'm like, oh yeah, but he's fine. They are facts.
It was a very small sentence, just so you know.
Yeah, I didn't.
But it was there.
Wasn't important.
or interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't interesting.
Your mom, you called it pinning butterflies.
Yeah.
The freeze frames of people's relationships or lives. Do you feel scared of that now that you have that understanding that telling stories about other people is kind of pinning butterflies? I'm just wondering if you feel scared about your work going forward, because I do. I feel scared about telling stories about people suddenly.
Look, I think it's important to just tell stories. I think it's important to leave flexibility in the weave. The problem comes when people hold you to things and go, you're not allowed to evolve. That is the receiving of the story. And it's just but I think there's an enormous amount of healing that goes into the craft of a narrative. And that's what I do. I spend a lot of time working out how to tell stories. And through that, I learn what part of the story is important to me. And, working on stage a lot, my stories evolve, sometimes to their detriment. So, my coming out story, for instance, was designed to make people laugh. And that's where the issue was, because the punchline was enough. But I think telling stories, I'm not frightened. I operate on the premise that it's okay to recede into the background and no one remembers who the hell I am. And I just work on the craft, and then everything else will work itself out.
And with that, Hannah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of the work that you did.
No problem. I would just like to acknowledge that I don't think I answered many questions directly, but I said a lot of information after you stopped talking.
And interesting information and important information.
Time will tell.
We won't listen to time regardless. But please also thank Jenny.
I will.
And just again, thank you, Hannah.
Absolute pleasure. Keep it real, guys. Keep on trucking.
Okay,
You're the
we will.
best.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See ya. Thank you.
Okay, what I want to say for our next right thing today, it's not really a thing. This is a next right idea, okay? One of the things that I connect so much with Hannah on is that her major sensitivity and her, she has incredible sounderies, okay? Sounds are important to her. She has offered me strategies about how when Abby sneezes loudly, I can be startled, because there's no way I cannot be startled. I will always be startled.
Yeah.
But Hannah described for me a way that I can decide in my own self what's next after the startle. I don't have to become furious after the startle. I didn't know that. Sister, I didn't know that. Like, she told me that when Abby sneezes, okay, so let's play this out. Okay.
Here I go.
Okay, sneeze.
Achoo.
Okay, well, that's not how it sounds, but
It's not the way it sounds. That's a false representation of the Abby sneeze.
Right.
It's an Olympic gold medal sneeze.
I'm
people.
just being polite here.
It is. It's like an alarm has gone off in our home. So let's say I'm doing the dishes or something, and that sneeze happens out of the blue, and I immediately, my entire body reacts. My body freaks out. I am
go into freeze.
Startled. I am startled.
You go into freeze. You freeze.
Hannah taught me after that, I can just go with it. I'm startled. Ooh. Oh, I'm startled. Oh, like there's an energy of startled can just go to like, I'm on a roller coaster. Like I don't have to then become utterly furious that this thing has startled me. So yes. So
it's
like
a transmutation of the energy.
That's right. It's like I can't control.
And go with it, she said.
I can't control my startle, but I can control what happens after the startle. And that comes with time. So I'm going to work on it. Okay. I have no idea why I started to tell that story, but here's the next right idea. Okay. This is just one quote from Nanette, which daily I think about it. Okay. And I just feel like it's very important for all of our pod squatters, many of whom are sensitive human beings. Like all of them are here. Okay. Listen. Hannah Gadsby says, when people say I'm too sensitive, I feel a bit like a nose being lectured by a fart. We're just going to leave that with you. Okay. Do not let farts tell you that you are too sensitive.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm so impressed that you just said fart twice.
I know. I said it. I don't say fart. I don't say fart, but I'm saying fart, fart, fart because it's so important to the message.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have another thing that I had a moment when she was speaking, and when she was talking about how her mom said, I'm so sorry that I raised you straight.
Mm.
And I think that that's something that we can think about and be like, oh, that's right. But then she talks about how when she was growing up, right, you know, she'd be playing by herself. She'd say, I don't want to go to that birthday party. I don't want to. And as a parent, they'd say, but you're sad. You're sad if you don't go to the birthday party. And she's like, I'm not sad. And I think sometimes although I would never raise my kid with the assumption that they're straight and look at them that way, I think that I can very easily raise my kids with the assumption that they're neurotypical.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a group of kids playing and my daughter playing separately on her own, I feel intense pain and I project on her loneliness and sadness and separateness. But that's raising her like a straight kid. That's
That's
raising
right.
her like a neurotypical kid. I just really got that from today's podcast. I want to let my kid be exactly who they are without projecting what the world will see them as.
Yeah.
I just want to see them through their own eyes and their own experiences.
Amen. That's the next right thing. It's like what Hannah's mom said, I wish I had been your friend.
yeah.
Mhm.
Meaning like, I wish I hadn't been a fixer of you. I wish I had just been a friend to you.
Mhm.
So beautiful, y'all.
All right. And the thing that her mom said, I thought the world wasn't going to change. So I thought I would have to change you. It's like we get so scared for our children and we bring to them the very fear that we're afraid that the world will bring to them. We bring it to them.
Mhm.
Sister, thank you for that.
So good.
We'll see you next week on We Can Do Hard Things.
Love you guys.
Love you.
I give you Tish Melton and Brandy Carlisle.
I walked through fire, I came out the other side. I chased desire, I made sure I got what's mine. And I continue to believe that I'm the one for me. And because I'm mine, I walk the line. 'Cause we're adventurers and heartbreaks on map, a final destination we lack. We've stopped asking directions to places they've never been. And to be loved, we need to be known. We'll finally find our way back home. And through the joy and pain that our lives bring, we can do hard things. I hit rock bottom, it felt like a brand new start. I'm not the problem, sometimes things fall apart. And I continue to believe the best people are free. And it took some time, but I'm finally fine. 'Cause we're adventurers and heartbreaks on map, a final destination we lack. We've stopped asking directions to places they've never been. And to be loved, we need to be known. We'll finally find our way back home. And through the joy and pain that our lives bring, we can do hard things. might get lost, but we're okay with that. We've stopped asking directions to places they've never been. And to be loved, we need to be known. We'll finally find our way back home. And through the joy and pain that our lives bring, we can do hard things. Yeah, we can do hard things. Yeah, we can do hard things.
We Can Do Hard Things is produced in partnership with Cadence 13 Studios. Be sure to rate, review, and follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcasts. Especially be sure to rate and review the podcast if you really liked it. If you didn't, don't worry about it. It's fine.